friend, our common friend, Muhyiddin, whom I like to refer to as Muin. Well, I knew Muin a long time ago, I met him, but I knew him in 3 different capacities. At first, both of us were working together, so we were colleagues in the Oxford University Press in Karachi. Second was that when he came to Dhaka and he replaced the Oxford University Press with UPL, having bought it up, then he became my boss. And my third meeting with him was because he became my publisher, and he published several of my books. I think I was so happy and grateful to him for doing that press. But in his off time, he was doing sort of as a silent freedom fighter, I would say, because I would meet, he was sharing a flat with Martin Pick, who spoke at your meeting yesterday. And so I used to visit them quite often. And I found that Muin was then sheltering a lot of young people who were coming here coming to Karachi from Dhaka and trying to find an escape route, either from Balochistan or frontier, whichever were possible. You may not know this, but there were a lot of people particularly in Sindh, like there was a Sindhi GA-Sindh movement, and there were people in Balochistan who were also helping the Bangladesh movement for independence at that point. So anyway, Muin's role was to help people cross over. And I often refer to him as a silent freedom fighter. And I wish the country would recognize people like him much more.
He made it possible for Bangladeshi books and authors to have a global reach by making them available internationally. And we did not have to pursue or depend upon Western publishers for that coveted exposure. Second, as noted by many, he brought a professionalism to the publishing project through his emphasis on the quality of the manuscripts he selected, as well as the editing, printing, cover design, and marketing of the volumes. Third, he dared to reach out beyond the traditionally profitable publishing sectors, for example, textbooks, popular literature, coffee table tomes, and so on, and instead support and encourage research and scholarship in the social sciences and the humanities. He was able to take these commercial risks because he was not a typical publisher, but an engaged intellectual, deeply interested in the development of academic resources and the blossoming of a discursive tradition and a scholarly culture in our country. Finally, he was an extraordinary human being. As a Bengali in Punjab University, he not only topped the list of his graduating class, he was elected the president of the university's student union by a huge margin. As you have heard several times yesterday, upon graduation, he gave up a scholarship to Stanford University to pursue his first love and his lifelong passion in publishing, and joined Oxford University Press. Finally, the last point I would like to make, he was persistent in his commitment to Enlightenment ideals, particularly his faith in reason, in knowledge, and in humanity.
And I remember that, in 1995, during those days, it was not, the publishing was not as digitized as it is today, and there used to be, plates used to be prepared, etc., etc. And I, in my youthful ignorance, used to make last-minute corrections. But I have never seen that Muhyiddin Bhai was irritated, or he told me that you see, it is costing me money what you are doing. But he was always, never for once he said that he compromised quality for business interests. So I think that is something that we should all learn from. And I think a generation of young researchers, and I know many, including myself, that we owe it to him that he gave us the global exposure of our works, and which really was a great incentive for us to grow ourselves to be better scholars. So but if I can capture all his qualities in one word, I would repeat what Professor S.R. Usmani said yesterday, and that is that he was a real patriot. I think that he, in his heart of hearts, he knew that what he was doing was for our country, for our people. And that's why he didn't think about commercial interest. He didn't think about, the difficulties he was facing, the sacrifices that he made.
Mr. Muhyiddin, whom I had known for a relatively shorter period than most of the other participants who are present here today, was more of a trailblazer. He said that he in fact traced a new path for the publication industry in Bangladesh. And having said that, I also mentioned that he definitely lit a flame that must not be allowed to be extinguished, especially in the context of present Bangladesh, was his enormous charisma. উনি খুব মৃদু ভাষী, বিনয়ী, কিন্তু দৃঢ় চিত্তের মানুষ ছিলেন. Soft spoken, but certainly man of very strong determination. He had enormous power to attract people, especially those who had ventured into the world of intellectual development, academic works. একটা অসাধারণ সম্মোহনী শক্তি তার মধ্যে ছিল. And from the acquaintances that I later on developed with others, I found that this charisma had in fact inspired many people. He was a source of inspiration. অনেককে উনি উজ্জীবিত করেছেন. And I think I personally find that he had enriched my life. I found him to be a man of great vision. In fact, we have visionaries, no dearth of visionaries in the country, but there are very few people who have been able to translate that vision into reality. And I would say that Mr. Muhyiddin has set an unprecedented example, that he was able to establish himself as a pioneer, as a promoter, as a developer of a business which had enormous strategic impact on the development of this country.
আমি 1986-এ তখন অক্সফোর্ড ইউনিভার্সিটিতে পড়াতাম। আমি ফিরছি বাংলাদেশে এই সেন্টার তৈরি করব বলে, এবং সেন্টারের তখন আমরা ফোকাস নিয়েছিলাম এনভায়রনমেন্ট এন্ড ডেভেলপমেন্ট বলে। তো এসেই আমি বুঝলাম যে এই নিয়ে অনেক কিছু বলতে হবে, লিখতে হবে, কারণ আমরা যখন প্রথম তার 84-এ একটা বড় মিটিং করলাম বাংলাদেশে সমস্ত প্রধান জ্ঞানী গুণী লোকদের নিয়ে, তখন একটা ধারণা সাধারণভাবে আমি ব্যাক পেলাম যে আমাদের তো ইন্ডাস্ট্রি নেই খুব বেশি, অতএব আমাদের এনভায়রনমেন্টাল প্রবলেম নেই। তখন আমাকে বলতে হলো উই অ্যাজ হিউম্যান বিইংস হোমো স্যাপিয়েন ইচ ইজ অ্যান এনভায়রনমেন্টাল প্রবলেম। তো সেটা ধরেই মহিউদ্দিনের সঙ্গে আমার পরিচয়। এবং মহিউদ্দিন, আমি আহমেদ পুরো বলছি না, বিকজ উই ওয়ার এট ফার্স্ট নেম বেসিস। এসেই আমি তারপরে আমাদের প্রথম উনি আমার বিসিএস এর 12টা বই পাবলিশ করেছে। আমি এখন লিস্টে দেখছি, বোধহয় আরো 2টো আছে আমার অফিসে, আমি শিওর হতে পারছি না, এখন মনে পড়ছে না। বাট 1900 ফার্স্ট বুক ওয়াজ অন কল্ড এনভায়রনমেন্ট ডেভেলপমেন্ট বাংলাদেশ, এবং ইটস এ 2 ভলিউমস, ভলিউম 1, ভলিউম 2, এবং প্রচন্ড একটা আলোড়ন তুলেছিল শুধু বাংলাদেশে না, সমগ্র পৃথিবীতে। এই ছিল এনভায়রনমেন্ট ডেভেলপমেন্টের উপরে প্রথম পাবলিশড ওয়ার্ল্ড ক্লাস বই, যেটা উনি আমাদেরকে অনেক ইমপ্রুভ করতে সাহায্য করেছেন কিভাবে এগোবো। এবং দ্যাট মেড আস গ্রেট ফ্রেন্ড। এবং তখন মতিঝিল ছিল ঢাকার সমগ্র ব্যবসার কেন্দ্রবিন্দু, গুলশান তখনও জেগে ওঠেনি, অতএব মতিঝিলে প্রায় যেতে হতো এবং আমরা ড্রপ ইন এবং তার চা এবং আড্ডা এবং কথা বলা, বই নেওয়া। একই সময় অনেক অথার আসতেন, ওই আমাকে যেতে দিতেন না, বলতেন যে তুমি একটু বসো, চলো, আমরা তুমি সম্পর্ক ছিল, বল তুমি একটু বসো, আমরা ওনার চাকে নিয়েই তুমি একটু কথা বলো, কমেন্ট করো।
I recall our first meeting when he insisted on asking me what am I doing, and it was quite a surprising thing to me that we're not talking about anything else. He was interested about what I was working on and what exactly I think is contributing, my work is contributing. And these conversations gave me an impression that Muhyiddin Bhai is more interested about the research, not the part of whether it would appeal to anybody, what it is going to contribute to the body of knowledge. This is the most important contribution that Muhyiddin Bhai has made in terms of the social science research in Bangladesh. I see him as a person who has made us proud and give us a platform that introduce the work that is done in Bangladesh, about the various aspects of Bangladesh, particularly in social sciences. You know, it was about economics, as we have heard. It has been about law. It has been gender, and all these things has put Bangladesh not only in the publication map of the world, most importantly, in the large body of knowledge that is produced outside Bangladesh. Because without him, we cannot write the history of Bangladeshi publication. In fact, without him, we won't be able to write the history of social science research in Bangladesh, on Bangladesh. That's why he'll be remembered. His legacy will go on. You know, each and every time we pick up a book about Bangladesh, outside Bangladesh or inside Bangladesh, published by UPL, even if it is not published by UPL, we would think that it could have been published by UPL. This is the legacy, and thanks, Maruk, for continuing that. And I hope
মহিউদ্দিন ভাই বিআইডিএস এর রিসার্চের জীবনে একটা গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভূমিকা পালন করেছেন। 80-এর দশকের শেষ থেকে 90-এর দশকের মাঝামাঝি পর্যন্ত বিআইডিএস ইউপিএল সিরিজ অফ ডেভেলপমেন্ট প্রচলিত ছিল এবং সেখানে রেহমান সুবান নেতৃত্ব দিয়েছিলেন এবং সেখানে বেশ কয়েকটি উল্লেখযোগ্য প্রকাশনা হয়। মহিউদ্দিন ভাই ব্যক্তিগতভাবে সকলের খবর রাখতেন এবং সকলে কে কি গবেষণা করছে সে নিয়েও তিনি খোঁজ খবর রাখতেন এবং অনেক সময় উনি বিআইডিএস এ আসতেন, কখনো কখনো আসতেন প্রকাশনার উপলক্ষেই সম্ভবত, সেটা আমার জানার কথা না, কিন্তু আমি ওনাকে প্রায়শই দেখতাম আসলে পরে আবু আব্দুল্লাহ, আমাদের আব্দুল্লাহ ভাই, তার ঘরে বসতেন এবং তারা দুজনে পরস্পরের বন্ধু ছিলেন এবং সেই আলাপে মাঝে মাঝে আমি তরুণতম শ্রোতা হিসেবে আমি অংশ নিতাম বা সিম্পলি বসে থাকতাম এবং সেই কথাগুলো যখন হতো তাদের মধ্যে, তখন আমার মনে হতো যে আমি একজন শুধু প্রকাশককে দেখছি না, আমি আমার আগের প্রজন্মের দুজন জাতীয়তাবাদী বুদ্ধিজীবী চিন্তক এরকম ব্যক্তিদের দেখছি। কিনা তুমি প্রকাশ করছো না, লিখছো না, এই ব্যাপারে বেশ ধমক না হলেও এক ধরনের মৃদু ধমক উনি দিতেন এবং সেটা শুনে আমি ওনাকে প্রমিস করতাম যে কিছু একটা করব, কিন্তু আর কখনো করা হয়নি। ওনার চলে যাওয়াটা আমার কাছে নক্ষত্রের পতন মনে হয় এবং আমরা যখন ন্যাশনালিজমের হিস্ট্রি লিখবো এই দেশের, সেখানে অবশ্যই প্রিন্ট মিডিয়ার একটা ভূমিকা, বা বেনেডিক্ট অ্যান্ডারসন যেটা প্রিন্ট ক্যাপিটালিজম বলেছেন, সেইটার প্রেক্ষিতে মহিউদ্দিন ভাইয়ের ভূমিকা সবসময় উঠে আসবে এবং তাকে আমরা সবসময় স্মরণ করব। এখনো দু একটা অসমাপ্ত কাজ।
Old friend, Moin, as I used to call him. Publisher Emeritus Moinuddin Ahmed. I have a very long association with Moin, and we have worked together for decades. And I'm very honored and proud to say that we worked on several projects together. We did a lot of co-publishing. And I was just thinking and remembering those projects today. And I just want to say that it has been such a delight working with him, because, you know, I would just enjoy, I would go to the office on Moti Jheel. I went there many times, and I met, of course, I met him and his staff. So I just want to say that it was an absolutely superb and a great honor working with Moin. And he was such an intellectual, so committed, so passionate about his work. And I would like to say that it's, I'd like to condole with his family, Marukh and Shamarukh and his dear wife, and say that I have been very fortunate to have worked with him for so many years. Thank you and Assalamu Alaikum.
Every book, is, whoever writes it, is like a child. And I think Mohiuddin Bhai gave the biggest gift, acted as a midwife to that child, and gave the best present ever to any author that he published, and treated that author with such respect and such humility. As Vinayak had said, he used to see him come all the time. And similarly with me, when I was a young teacher, I used to see Mohiuddin Bhai and UPL's presence in every conference that we did. In every conference in Dhaka University, there was a UPL stall, and every book fair, there were writers who went to him. So, and I'm so happy that the legacy lives on through you, Marukh, and your family. And I wish you all the success, which you will have, no doubt, which you already are having, and that you will carry on your father's legacy. People, girls like us, Marukh, who have fathers who are larger than life personalities, have a difficult task in keeping up with their lives and their realities that surrounds their lives. But we also have a great asset, that we have fathers like that to follow.
কিন্তু মহিউদ্দিন আহমেদ ভেবেছেন যে এটা করা দরকার, এবং তিনি বাংলাদেশে একটা মানসম্পন্ন প্রকাশনা প্রতিষ্ঠান, যেটা কতগুলো সুনির্দিষ্ট পদ্ধতির মধ্যে দিয়ে যাবে, প্রক্রিয়ার মধ্যে দিয়ে যাবে, এবং যেন তেন বই প্রকাশিত হবে না, সেই জায়গাটা বাংলাদেশে তৈরি করার চেষ্টা করেছেন ভীষণ প্রতিকূলতার মধ্যে। কারণ এখানে রাষ্ট্রের কোনো সহযোগিতা নেই, এখানে মানে আমাদের পাঠকের সংখ্যাও বাড়ানো যায়নি, ইত্যাদি নানান কনস্ট্রেইনের মধ্যেও এটা টিকিয়ে রেখেছেন, এবং সেটাকে কিছুটা ব্যবসা সফল করা, অর্থাৎ নিজের পায়ে দাঁড়ানো, এটা ফিলান্থ্রপি না, এই জায়গায় তিনি দাঁড় করিয়েছেন। তো তার যে কৃতিত্ব, আমি মনে করি প্রজন্ম থেকে প্রজন্মে যারা বাংলাদেশে ভবিষ্যতের গণতান্ত্রিক রাষ্ট্র নিয়ে ভাববে, যারা গণতান্ত্রিক রাষ্ট্র গঠনটাকে অনেক গভীর থেকে বিভিন্ন জায়গায় গড়ে তোলার চিন্তা করবেন, সেখানে তারা যে কয়জন মানুষকে গুরুত্বপূর্ণ ভাবে পাবেন, মহিউদ্দিন আহমেদ তাদের মধ্যে অগ্রগণ্য। ফলে তিনি আমাদের জাতীয় জীবনের অত্যন্ত গুরুত্বপূর্ণ একজন মানুষ, যাকে স্মরণ করা হবে ভবিষ্যতে অনেক গুরুত্বের সাথে, আমি মনে করি, আমি বিশ্বাস করি। তো সেই দিক থেকে আমি তার স্মৃতির প্রতি, তার কর্মময় জীবনের প্রতি গভীর শ্রদ্ধা জানাই।
Mohiuddin Bhai and I, of course, go back over 25 years. And yesterday, when I was listening to the memorial, there was a very, very touching moment where one of our colleagues, one of your speakers, called him dinosaur. Now, I know it was used in an affectionate way. And the reason he probably used that was he had all those wonderful qualities of a publisher, the gentleman, gentlewoman publisher, where tactility, warmth, personal care, and familiarity was equally important as the erudition, as the scholarship, and so on. And one of Mohideen Bhai's favorite piece, we shared this common passion for rain. I say the rain in East and West Bengal is particularly ferocious and magical at the same time. And often, every time I would go to his house, he would ask me to read this one particular piece from his book, which I'll read as a dedication to his memorial and the family. And it's simply called Night Rain. And it's published in Postcards from Bangladesh. Night Rain. I woke up at 3 a.m. with a start. I was shivering and sweating profusely at the same time. The cotton t-shirt I had on was completely drenched. So was the bed sheet I was lying on. Outside, I could hear the rain hitting the terrace floor with relentless ferocity. Thunderclaps shook the glass panes to near breaking point. I love the sound of water and rain, whatever their mood. It has a certain sense of assurance, a steadiness that isn't always present in the other elements. I had a spontaneous desire to step out into the rain. I was drenched anyway, so getting the rain's feel on my back would do me no harm. Besides, getting wet in the night rain has its peculiar thrills. I stepped out, my body heat met the rain. The rainwater sizzled off my skin, steaming up in curls of white vapor. All I could see and imagine was a blanket of hoarfrost.
I'm not an academician either, but I had the opportunity to meet him, to know him for many years, because উনি যখন রেড ক্রিসেন্ট বিল্ডিং এ ওই ইউপিএল শুরু করলেন, তখন আমার বন্ধু বান্ধব যারা, তাদের মধ্যে অনেকেই লেখালেখি করতেন, অনেকে শিক্ষক ছিলেন। সো আমি সেখানে গেছি বেশ কয়েকবার, সেখান থেকেই তার সঙ্গে পরিচয় এবং নানানভাবে নানান সময় তার সঙ্গে দেখা হয়েছে। আমি একটা জিনিস খুব বিস্ময়ের সঙ্গে লক্ষ্য করেছি, সেটা হলো যে আমরা প্রকাশক বলতে আমার যে ধারণাটা ছিল, সেই ধারণাটা উনি একেবারে বদলে দিয়েছেন। সেটি হলো যে আমার ধারণা ছিল যে প্রকাশক শুধু বই প্রকাশ করেন এবং তারা বই বিক্রি করেন, কিন্তু একজন প্রকাশক, তাকে যে এত লেখাপড়া করতে হয়, তাকে যে এত কিছু জানতে হয়, এবং তিনি যে কত গভীর জ্ঞানের অধিকারী ছিলেন, এটি তার সঙ্গে কথা না বললে আমি কোনোদিনই বুঝতাম না। এবং যে কারণে তার সঙ্গে যখনই দেখা হয়েছে, দুঃখিত, তখনই বিভিন্ন প্রসঙ্গে তিনি তার মতামতগুলো প্রকাশ করতেন এবং সেগুলো আমরা খুব মুগ্ধ হয়ে শুনতাম এবং আমাদের নিজেদের ধারণা তৈরি করার ক্ষেত্রে সেগুলো খুব সহায়ক হতো। আমরা হয়তো নিজস্ব একটা ধারণা নিয়ে চলছি, কিন্তু মহিউদ্দিন ভাইয়ের সঙ্গে কথা বলার পরে দেখা গেল আমাদের সেই ধারণাগুলো কিছু বা চিন্তার জায়গাটিতে কিছু পরিবর্তন এলো। এইরকমই তার প্রভাব ছিল আমাদের উপরে এবং এই প্রভাবগুলো আমাদের উপরে অব্যাহত ছিল। তার লেখাপড়া, তার শিল্প সাহিত্য সম্পর্কে যে ধারণা, এবং শিল্প সাহিত্য শুধু নয়, সমাজ বিজ্ঞান বলি, আমাদের অর্থনীতি বলি, বিভিন্ন বিষয়ে তার যে আগ্রহ এবং সেই সব বিষয়ে বই প্রকাশের তার যে উদ্যোগ, সেগুলো যদি আমরা এখন বিশ্লেষণ করি তাহলে দেখা যাবে যে এত বৈচিত্র্যময় প্রকাশনা বাংলাদেশে আর দ্বিতীয় কোনো প্রকাশনীর নেই এবং এত সুচিন্তিত। একটা সময় অনেকেই ঠাট্টা করে বলতেন যে ওটা তো হলো সাহেবদের প্রকাশনা, ওটা ইংরেজিতে লেখা হয়, কিন্তু পরবর্তীকালে তিনি যে বাংলা ভাষায় কতটা বা বাংলা সাহিত্যে তার যে কতটা আগ্রহ এবং কতটা দখল ছিল, সেটাও কিন্তু ধীরে ধীরে প্রমাণিত হলো যে তিনি বাংলা বইও প্রকাশ করলেন এবং যে বইগুলো আমাদের জন্য অত্যন্ত মূল্যবান, আমাদের সমাজের, আমাদের রাজনীতির দলিল হিসেবে সেই বইগুলো কাজ করছে। ইংরেজি বইগুলো তো পাশাপাশি রয়েছে। তো এই মহিউদ্দিন ভাইয়ের সঙ্গে আমার আরো ঘনিষ্ঠতা হলো যখন আমি সংস্কৃতি মন্ত্রণালয়ের দায়িত্বে ছিলাম তিনি একটি বিষয় খুবই আগ্রহী ছিলেন, সেটা হলো গ্রন্থনীতি, জাতীয় গ্রন্থনীতি, ন্যাশনাল বুক পলিসি। এবং এই ন্যাশনাল বুক পলিসি নিয়ে তিনি অত্যন্ত মেধা নিয়ে, শ্রম দিয়ে এটি প্রণয়ন করেছিলেন। মূল কাজটি কিন্তু তাঁর করা, যদিও এটি প্রকাশকদের পক্ষ থেকে উপস্থাপন করা হয়েছিল, কিন্তু আমি ব্যক্তিগতভাবে জানি যে মূল কাজটি তারই করা, এবং তিনি প্রতিটা শব্দ তিনি চিন্তা করে লিখেছেন, আলোচনা করেছেন। এবং বিভিন্ন সময় যখন যেটা হয় যে সরকারের বিভিন্ন কর্মকর্তাদের সঙ্গে আলোচনা প্রসঙ্গে যখন এই বিষয়গুলো যখন আলোচনা করতে হতো, তাকে যখন সবাই বসতে হতো, তিনি কিন্তু তার যুক্তির জায়গাটিতে প্রায় অনড় থাকতেন। এবং সেক্ষেত্রে আমরা বা আমাদের যারা সরকারি কর্মকর্তা থাকতেন, তারা কিন্তু মহিউদ্দিন ভাইয়ের মতামতটা গুরুত্বের সঙ্গে গ্রহণ করতেন, এবং সেটাই হয়তো তাদের শেষ পর্যন্ত মানতে হতো। আমার নিজের খুব একটা বলতে গেলে আফসোস আছে যে আমি থাকাকালীন আমি এই গ্রন্থনীতিটি সংসদে অনুমোদন করে আসতে পারিনি। তো এটি আমার জন্য একটি বেদনার বিষয়। তো মহিউদ্দিন ভাই কিন্তু এই কাজটি করেছেন, এবং আমি মনে করি এখন যারা দায়িত্বে আছেন তাদের উচিত হবে এটি সম্পূর্ণ করে এটিকে দেশে গ্রন্থনীতি হিসেবে এটিকে প্রয়োগ করার যে উদ্যোগটি, সেটি তাদের গ্রহণ করা উচিত। আমরা মহিউদ্দিন ভাইকে হয়তো ফিরে পাবো না, কিন্তু আমরা তাকে সবসময় স্মরণ করব শ্রদ্ধার সঙ্গে। এবং আমি শুধু একজন প্রকাশক হিসেবে তার নাম তো বারবার উঠে আসছে, এবং তার প্রকাশক হিসেবে তার যে ভূমিকা সেটির কথা বারবার উল্লেখিত হচ্ছে, কিন্তু আমি এইরকম জ্ঞানী এবং একজন অত্যন্ত যাকে বলা যায় যে বিভিন্ন বিচিত্র বিষয় নিয়ে তার যে জ্ঞান, সেটি আমি আর খুব কম মানুষের কাছেই দেখেছি। আমি একজন দুজন আমার জীবনের অভিজ্ঞতা হলো যে এইরকম বিভিন্ন বিষয়ের উপরে যার এত দক্ষতা, এত জ্ঞান, সেই জ্ঞান ভান্ডারের যে ভান্ডারী, সেই মানুষটিকে আমরা হারালাম। আমি তার প্রতি আবারও শ্রদ্ধা জানাই, এবং আমি তার পরিবারের সকলের প্রতি সমবেদনা জানাই। তাদের প্রায় সকলের সঙ্গে আমার ব্যক্তিগতভাবে পরিচয় আছে। আমি তাদের সঙ্গে সহমর্মিতা প্রকাশ করছি। সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ।
কিন্তু সেই সময় তিনি বলেছিলেন তার একটি স্বপ্ন রয়েছে। সেই স্বপ্নটা হচ্ছে যে তিনি এমন একটি প্রতিষ্ঠান গড়ে তুলবেন, যে প্রতিষ্ঠান স্বাধীন বাংলাদেশের মানুষের মননশীলতা, জ্ঞান এবং সমাজের পরিস্থিতি এবং সমাজের পরিবর্তন আনতে সহায়ক হবে। তিনি শুধু একটি প্রকাশক হিসেবে থাকতে চান না, তিনি থাকতে চান মানুষ হিসেবে, মানুষ গঠনে, জাতি গঠনে, মুক্ত মন গঠনে, যে গঠনে প্রক্রিয়ায় কোনো রাজনৈতিক বিভাজন থাকবে না, কোনো ধর্মের বিভাজন থাকবে না, কোনো কৃষ্টির বিভাজন থাকবে না। এবং তিনি সেটা সুন্দরভাবে সম্পন্ন করেছেন গত 30 বছরের অভিজ্ঞতায়। এবং যতবারই আমি ঢাকায় এসেছি, তার ঘরে, তার অফিসে তিনি আমন্ত্রণ জানাতেন। ঘর থেকে যে খাবারটা আসতো সেটা আমরা ভাগ করে খেতাম। 4-5 জন আমন্ত্রিত অতিথি সেখানে থাকতেন, আর আমন্ত্রিত নয়, এমনি সহায়কভাবে অতিথি থাকতেন। তাদের সাথে গপ্পে মধুর হয়ে উঠত। ঠিক সেই সময়ই আরেকটি জিনিস তিনি যে করেছিলেন, যেটা এখন আন্তর্জাতিকতায় পর্যবসিত হয়েছে, সেটা হলো নিউ ইয়র্কে একটি বই মেলার আয়োজন করা হয়েছিল। এবং তখন জানা ছিল না যে বাংলাদেশ থেকে কোনো প্রকাশক আসবেন কিনা। কিন্তু মহিউদ্দিন ভাই বোধহয় প্রথম সেই পদক্ষেপটা নিলেন, এবং নিউ ইয়র্কে বইমেলায় বাংলাদেশ থেকে সে আসতেন। এবং ধীরে ধীরে সেই বইমেলাটাই এখন আন্তর্জাতিকতায় পর্যবেসিত হয়েছে।
যত গবেষণা হয়েছে দেশে বিদেশে, এবং সেই সমস্ত গবেষণার যেগুলো নাকি উৎকৃষ্ট স্তরে পৌঁছেছিল, তার সবগুলো তিনি প্রায় বের করেছেন। এবং বাংলাদেশের একটা অত্যন্ত, কারণ আমাদের এখানে তো জ্ঞান চর্চার পরিসরটা ক্ষুদ্র, জ্ঞান চর্চার পরিসর সবসময় কম, এবং যেটাকে আমরা বলি পর্যালোচনামূলক বিশ্লেষণ এবং বীক্ষণ, যেটা আমাদের এমনকি একাডেমিক পরিসরের মধ্যে অত্যন্ত দুর্বল এখনো পর্যন্ত এই অবধি এসে, বাংলাদেশের 50 বছরে এসে। সেখানে একটা ছোট্ট একটা প্রকাশনার মধ্য দিয়ে যে সময় তিনি যাত্রা শুরু করেন, সেখান থেকে তিনি বিশাল মহিরুহের মতো একটা স্বপ্ন দেখে তিনি একের পর এক বই করেছেন, নারী বিষয়ে, রাজনীতি বিষয়ে, ইতিহাস বিষয়ে, পানি, আইন, পার্বত্য অঞ্চল, এমনকি যে সমস্ত বিষয়ে কেউ কথা বলতে সাহসী হতো না, সেই সমস্ত বিষয়ে প্রকাশনা তিনি অবিরল হয়ে পড়ে গেছেন। এবং আমাদের জন্য একটা বলতে পারেন যে একটা প্রকাশনা থেকে এত বিপুল আয়তন আপনার আকর যদি বলি, সেটা তৈরি করেছেন তিনি তার প্রকাশনা সংস্থাটি।
Call is that my father was no writer. Odd articles, yes, here and there, speeches, but no writing. It was essentially and completely due to the persistence of Mohiuddin Bhai, who, despite the gap in our ages, insisted that I address him as such, that he had recalled Probashi Mukti Juddhar Dinguli, which after so many decades is now suddenly being discovered as a reference point, because the liberation war was a total war when the country had united.
আমার স্মৃতিতে আছে যে মহিউদ্দিন ভাই প্রচন্ড আন্তরিকতা নিয়ে এবং একটা প্রফেশনাল জিল নিয়ে তিনি এই কাজটি করতে চেয়েছিলেন।
I just wanted to say briefly how incredibly brave Moin was in those days in Karachi in 1971. He was being harassed by authorities for little things and for big things, but he never spoke against anyone, even the policemen and the authorities who were following him. He was always calm, always said, well, they think they are just doing their duty. He never spoke ill of anyone, which was very surprising and made those of us who knew him well love him even more.
একজন লেখকের একটা পাণ্ডুলিপি নিয়ে কোনোভাবে ছাপিয়ে দেওয়া না, প্রকাশনা মানে প্রকাশক যিনি, তিনি একই সঙ্গে একটা লিডারশিপের ভূমিকা পালন করেন।
পুস্তক প্রকাশনা বলতে তিনি কি বুঝতেন সেটির দিকে মানে গুরুত্ব দেওয়া, সেটা হচ্ছে যে পুস্তক প্রকাশনা সংস্কৃতি এর যে বিশ্বব্যাপী যে অবস্থান, তার আলোকে তিনি বাংলাদেশ থেকে বই প্রকাশ করতে চাইতেন। তো তার মধ্যে তার যেহেতু ট্রেনিং ছিল, সেটা হচ্ছে তিনি অক্সফোর্ড ইউনিভার্সিটি প্রেস লিমিটেডে কাজ শুরু করেছিলেন এবং বাংলাদেশে তিনি অনুভব করেছিলেন যে বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়গুলোর যে ধরনের প্রকাশনা উচিত, বাংলাদেশ সমস্ত বিশ্ববিদ্যালয়গুলো মিলে যে জ্ঞান চর্চার প্রতিফলন করতে পারেনি, তিনি একা প্রায় তা করেছেন। এখন এটি করতে গেলে যে কি পরিমাণ নিজের জ্ঞানও দরকার এবং সাংস্কৃতিক অনুশীলন দরকার, এই দুটির তিনি একটি মানে দৃষ্টান্ত বাংলাদেশে তিনি রেখেছেন।
It's a sad occasion, but also it is an opportunity to celebrate a wonderful man, his memory. I think it's unusual for a publisher to achieve so much respect and affection from a global, not just national community, and also beyond just writers and readers. It's a respect for his passionate support of social and political causes, but alongside his sheer class, integrity. His authors adored him. And there was a kind of mutual loyalty between him and us and him. And also that includes for many Videshi Banglophiles, I put it that way, such an honor to be published by him. And indeed for many of us a first preference because we wanted to be read strongly in Bangladesh as well as elsewhere. He combined, in my understanding, a strong commitment to rejuvenating education across the country post-liberation. He combined that commitment with a good business sense. He realized early on when his OUP role morphed into founding UPL that a freedom to publish groundbreaking, even risky studies in the fields of development, political economy, and history, and so on, would be dependent upon a sustainable business model. And he evolved that through supplying textbooks and other materials for schools across the country. It was a clever combination. And of course, fourth edit now. So I think Muhyiddin Bhai, for all of us, has a uniqueness in the history of Bangladesh from the 1970s. I mean, he's really part of its liberation tradition, a tradition of innovation, creativity, generosity, rigor, standards. And I think he represented all of that as a significant major public intellectual in the country across this period, 50 years since liberation. He will be sorely missed, but never, never forgotten. Anek Dandavad.
Mr. Muhyiddin Ahmed, actually only very few times, but every time I met him, I was very much impressed by him. And he's a very courageous man. He dared to publish the report of the Chittagong Hill Tracks Commission, Life is Not Ours, and all the updates in Bangla. And that was quite a thing at that time to publish it because it was very sensitive. And a few times after that also I met him, and when my book was published about land, women, land and power in Bangladesh, about Jogapur, there was a discussion organized by UPL, and Mr. Muhyiddin Ahmed took very lively part in this, this discussion, even though it was a bit difficult for him to talk, but it was very admirable, I thought. So I thank him very much for all he has done, and your family also.
My point of angle was that how gentle and how erudite this person is, who has almost single-handedly established this publishing process in a country like Bangladesh, where reasons and logics are not to be considered, not only in publishing and so many other sectors. So I think I would like to stop by raising only one point, which of course has been already discussed in many different ways here. That I see that Muhyiddin Bhai's contribution to us, to many of the scholars, thinkers, researchers of Bangladesh, about Bangladesh, is not only because he established something like UPL, University Press Limited, but I would say that this was such a important contribution, such an important journey, that he wanted to establish a reason behind publishing a book. If I try to put it simply, in our country, as we all know, that many books are published both in Bangla and English, but without any proper reason, without any, let's say, logic behind it. Many of these are not properly authored or properly edited, not even properly authored. But Muhyiddin Bhai in this land established a very strong process of logic behind publishing, and which is related to the idea of circulation of knowledge, I would say.
20-something, we did a book on public interest litigation, which was based on a conference where there were speeches by some of the people like Justice Bhagwati and Justice Krishna Iyer from India and some of our leading lawyers, as a very inception of public interest litigation in Bangladesh in the early 90s. And Mohiuddin Bhai published that. It was a book edited by Shadin Bhai, Dr. Shadin Malik, myself, and a friend and colleague of ours who's passed away, Bushra Musa. And I remember I used to go around to Mohiuddin Bhai's for lunch and tea because our offices were near each other in Motijheel. And it took a long time to extract that book out of all of us, but he kept on and on and on and on, and that's how it finally happened. So, and ever since then, particularly, I had to call him Mohiuddin Bhai because he said we were also authors in his canon. But the other thing I really wanted to remember about him, and several people have mentioned these stories. Dr. Yunus spoke about how Mohiuddin Bhai really stood by him at that time when he was under vituperative and vicious attack by the state back in the early 2009 onwards. Janneke spoke just now about how he published the Chittagong Hill Tracts Commission reports when it would have been really risky to do that. And I just wanted to remember what he did. Shireen Haq mentioned this yesterday, that he was one of the signatories of the 49 citizens who signed a statement after my partner David Bergman was accused of contempt by the ICT. It was a pretty brave thing for everybody to do. But what was really shocking was that, and they did it in the face of all the people who were making kind of vicious attacks and so on, knowing that they were making attacks on people who all their lives have worked to take forward and to document the history of the liberation war. And Mohiuddin Bhai was one of those signatories. And what was shocking was he was also indicted for contempt by the ICT. And unlike many others, he didn't back down. He stood with that group that said, we won't apologize. He said, I'm not saying anything wrong. I'm simply saying that the history of 71 should be written. We shouldn't be having official versions and canons and mantras that people repeat. We should be looking at what the history is.
For me, Mohiuddin Bhai represented one of the major positive energy that this city and this country has. A wonderful man, very witty. He had a kind of wit that was subtle and very, a wit that we all appreciated greatly. And I think a man with great integrity, which is unfortunately getting more and more of a rarity these days. And I know many of my friends were either writers and have written on Bangladesh or publishers. And every time they've come to Dhaka, it's always been, I have to go and visit Mohiuddin Bhai. That's a must. It was like a absolutely mandatory that even if they don't meet anybody else, to go and see Mohiuddin Bhai, meet Mohiuddin Bhai was absolutely a mandatory thing for them, everyone to do. It's like, I know that in some, like in Pakistan, when at one point, whenever people from other countries went Bangladesh, India, you had to report to the police station. So for coming to Bangladesh, you had to report to Mohiuddin Bhai and let him know that you're here. After he got ill and then he was off, someone with his mind, his vigor, his energy, it didn't stop him. He would come in a wheelchair to so many seminars and discussions, book launches, and he would come in his wheelchair, but he would always ask questions. He was pertinent. It never stopped him. That he had Parkinson's did not stop him from, keeping his mind alert, no matter how much it may have affected him. He did ask pertinent questions.
I think the one thing I really, really appreciate about him is his meticulousness. It was just unbelievably meticulous. Sometimes the books took a little longer than we expected. But at the end of the day, when the books arrived, we knew that a job had been done well, extremely well.
Through UPL,
he almost single-handedly introduced the creative, intellectual, and academic writings of Bangladeshi scholars to the outside world. বলতে গেলে একক প্রচেষ্টা বাংলাদেশের সৃজনশীল বুদ্ধিবৃত্তিক এবং একাডেমিক লেখালেখিকে বিশ্বের কাছে তিনি পরিচিত করেছেন। What can you ask more from a publisher in a developing country? এর থেকে বেশি কি আর চাইতে পারি? And let's not forget that Muhyiddin Bhai had deep commitment to publish high quality creative works in Bengali as well. UPL is very much known like the Oxford University Press of Bangladesh, but we forget his commitment in publishing high quality Bengali writings. And he also published Bengali translations of internationally published volumes that he thought should be introduced to Bangladeshi readership. We shall remember Muhyiddin Bhai always through his pioneering publishing career. আপনার সবাইকে ধন্যবাদ।
মহিউদ্দিন ভাই সবার কাছে যিনি মহিউদ্দিন আহমেদ নামে পরিচিত, তার সম্পর্কে অল্প কথায় কিছু বলা আমার জন্য মুশকিল হয়ে যায়। জীবনের এক দীর্ঘ পথ তার সঙ্গে চলেছি। তিনি হাত ধরে আমাদেরকে এগিয়ে নিয়ে গেছেন, নানা রকমভাবে নানা দিক সম্পর্কে বোঝাবার চেষ্টা করেছেন, আর অসাধারণ মধুময় স্মৃতি তার সঙ্গে।
I was immediately struck by his refined and urbane personality and scholarly erudition, both deep and wide. To a writer, the publication of his or her first book is a huge event. In my case, Muhyiddin Bhai will be forever remembered and cherished, both on my bookshelf and in my heart, as the person who went beyond his role as an editor and helped to produce with consummate care my first book and collection of columns, An Abiding City, Ruminations from Rome. And today, as I sit in Rome, I send this larger-than-life figure in the Bangladeshi publishing world my prayers in his onward journey.
But Muhyiddin was a person of both courage and, obviously, as it turned out, commitment and entrepreneurial zeal. And he established English language publishing in Bangladesh as a pioneer and has sustained it over virtually half a century, so that it is now a legacy which he has bequeathed to his daughter Maruk, and it is still the premier publishing house of Bangladesh today. This is quite exceptional achievement. He approached me at the time that the task forces had in fact delivered their 29 reports during my period as the head of planning in the caretaker period. And here again, he had the good sense to say that what is going to become of these reports? Would they simply gather dust in the archives of the Planning Commission? Why don't we go and do something about publishing this? So I was still then, I had handed over my charge even though the election was there. And whether, as I said, legitimately or not, I do not know, but I went in for a forward marketing transaction with Muhyiddin Bhai to in fact give the rights of publication to UPL. And he bought out those 4 handsomely published volumes, which introduced again those 25 task force reports, which were sadly not read by the intended audience, which happened to be the then PNP elected government of Bangladesh, but which became a major resource in virtually every library and with every scholar who was interested in the economic development problems of Bangladesh. This again was his great problem. CPD's publications appearing with the joint logo with UPL were a joint venture. In all these, he took risks because there was no assurance that academic publishing was a marketable proposition. And so whilst entering into partnership ensured that partners would make an investment, he too, as the publisher, had to take that risk, and he was willing to take it, as he did with the task force reports. He was, beyond the contributions he made to publishing, himself an exceptional and decent human being who interacted with people with great modesty and humility, and was very respectful to the academic community, as were we to him, because we realized that without Muhyiddin Ahmed around, who would actually get to see our works? Ronak and I have been particularly privileged that apart from our joint ventures with Muhyiddin Bhai, he probably published, for us put together, we were probably the most published authors in his pantheon. And for me and for Ronak, therefore, this was a great privilege that here was a person who was willing to risk publishing us and to always be available whenever we had something to offer to him and to give it his full professional attention. So I owe him a great personal debt, as does Ronak. She will speak for herself, in actually giving us an opportunity to share our thoughts with a much wider audience. Society, which is very helpful in building institutions, and not that many institutions last the course and maintain both the tradition and the quality. This was a tradition which he established and an institution which he established, which is worth preserving, maintaining, and perpetuating into the future, so that future generations will continue to know that there are publishers who value and recognize academic works. And as and when every volume comes out, the author should in fact say a quiet prayer in reverence to Muhyiddin Ahmed, the pioneer of academic publishing in Bangladesh.
He was unique because for half a century, he remained the only academic publisher in Bangladesh who maintained some standards and quality and ethics in publication. On my first impression, what struck me then and always remained in my life, that here is a very dynamic person, very forceful person, very self-confident person. And when a person is so dynamic and self-confident, then authors also then have confidence in that publishing house. He was can do, and he will not give up, that kind of a personality. But what I liked most about Mr. Muhyiddin, and which is not that quality you don't find so much in Bangladesh, that he was a very straight talking, straight shooter kind of a person. And if he didn't like something or a book, he would argue back and talk back. And even I have seen him, for instance, refuse very established publication of books given by very established senior bureaucrats and all kinds of people. And even if they offer money, because he would say, no, he has certain standards. Again, he was thinking of students. And he was very far-sighted, really, because the students of political science in Dhaka University, they have been using for the last nearly half a century these two books of mine as a standard text, so that there was a use for the Pakistan book and also the second book, Bangladesh Politics, because otherwise students really didn't have any book. Publisher, he would first read the manuscript. Then once it passes, he makes up his mind, it will make the cut. Then he will send it to readers. He will get expert opinion. Then he will send it to copy editing. So any international academic publication which has to follow through certain processes, Mr. Mohiuddin and UPL was the only publication house here in Bangladesh that followed that tradition of the industry. And he could have cut corners, but he didn't. And I always respected him because of this, his commitment and his professionalism. Because again, as I said, in Bangladesh, it is very difficult to maintain professional standards. I found that he never gave an inclination that he will give up, that this is something that he is going to do, come what may. And I really admired him for this. The other quality that we don't think about, because generally in Bangladesh, that's not how people are defined. I always thought that he was a true patriot in the sense that he always wanted to showcase Bangladesh. He had his publication with standards, and he always took the trouble to showcase his publications internationally. I myself had the privilege of partnering with him in 1996 at Columbia University, when I organized the Bangladesh at 25 conference, and I asked Mr. Mohiuddin whether he will then also have a book exhibit of all the English language publications that UPL has brought out, because it really pained me to see at Columbia that none of the English language publications on Bangladesh are available. So that I thought that my colleagues should see how much publication is going on in Bangladesh. And though it was very low budget, I couldn't really, pay him to bring books. He took the trouble to bring all these books, and we had a wonderful 3-day exhibition showcasing Bangladesh publication at Columbia. And he used to do this regularly with the European network of Bangladesh studies there. Again, because
I first met Mohiuddin in 1956, but we were not friends. In fact, on one occasion he told me, you should never go to a friend to be your publisher. But we agreed that it was all right for a publisher to become a friend. And I think the reason he said this was that there had to be a professional distance between a publisher and a writer, despite the friendly relations, and a mutual respect for each other's distinct roles. He was a very loving father. He was also a very loving and understanding husband. We hear of husbands not wanting their wives to do their PhD. But, when Mehtab Khanum went to India to do her PhD, he supported her. He went with her occasionally. He supported her wholly. And he was so proud of her. She was doing something else. He didn't always understand what she was doing. But I remember once he told me that Molly, he had gone to one presentation that Mehtab Khanum had made, Dr. Mehtab Khanum had made. And he told me that how impressed he was by her presentation. That was the type of wonderful man he was.
আমার সঙ্গে সম্পর্ক যেটা ছিল সেটা খুব ঘটনাবহুল কিছু না, অনেকটা গভীর অনুভূতির বিষয় ছিল, স্মৃতি, কিন্তু ঘটনা খুব সাদামাটা ঘটনা। আমার পরিচিতির একটা ভিত্তি ছিল, পুরনো একটা ভিত্তি, সেটা হলো চট্টগ্রাম কলেজিয়েট স্কুল। আমরা দুজনেই কলেজিয়েট স্কুলের ছাত্র, সেটা বারে বারে সে স্মরণ করিয়ে দিত। আমি সিনিয়র ছাত্র ছিলাম, সে জুনিয়র ছাত্র ছিল, কাজে বরাবর আমার প্রতি সিনিয়র ছাত্র হিসেবে যেরকম শ্রদ্ধা রাখা দরকার মনে হতো সেরকমই শ্রদ্ধা রাখতো, কিন্তু ঘনিষ্ঠতা কোনোদিন কমে নাই। আমি যত কাজকর্ম করেছি যে তাতে খুবই উৎসাহ দিত, নিজের থেকে এসে বোঝার চেষ্টা করতো, জানার চেষ্টা করতো।
আমাদের প্রতি বছর আমরা একটা সামাজিক ব্যবসা দিবস বলে একটা দিবস পালন করি, নিজেদের কাজকর্মগুলো খতিয়ানগুলো নেওয়ার জন্য সবাইকে আমন্ত্রণ করি বোঝানোর জন্য। আমি বরাবরই তাকে আমন্ত্রণ করেছি এবং প্রতিবারই তিনি এসেছেন, কোনো সময় এমন হয়নি যে উনি আসেননি। কাজে এই কাজের আমার কাজের প্রতি তার যে অনুভূতি ছিল এটা তিনি নিজেই অন্তত আনন্দ পেতেন যে আমাদের কাজকর্মের কথা দেখে কাজ বিষয় শুনে। আর আমার বই সম্বন্ধে তার যথেষ্ট উৎসাহ ছিল যে বইগুলো প্রকাশ করবে, এবং নিজের থেকেই সময় উনি হঠাৎ আমাদের একটা বইকে পুরস্কার ঘোষণা করলেন এবং বাংলা একাডেমিতে বড় করে সেটা সেই অনুষ্ঠান করলেন। অন্যান্য বইয়ের সঙ্গে আমাদের বইটাকেও সামনে নিয়ে আসলেন, যেটা তার আনার দরকার ছিল না, কিন্তু সেটা তখন খুব খারাপ লাগতো যে প্রকাশনা মানেই ভালো প্রকাশনা মানে কলকাতা থেকে আসতে হবে, এখানে কোনো প্রকাশনা বলে কিছু নাই। সেই কারণে যখন মহিউদ্দিন ইউপিএল করলো তার প্রকাশনা দেখে খুবই ভালো লাগলো, খুবই আনন্দ লাগলো যে একটা জায়গাতে একটা বিরাট একটা অভাব ছিল, সেই অভাব মহিউদ্দিন পূরণ করতে পেরেছে। সেটা শুধু যে প্রকাশনার তার গুণগত মান প্রকাশনা, তার যে কন্টেন্টের উপরেও যে জোরটা তার দিয়েছে, এটা তারকে বরাবরই আমার সেই জন্য আমি তাকে শ্রদ্ধা করে এসেছি, ভালোবেসে এসেছি। এটাই আমাদের সম্পর্ক ছিল। এই সম্পর্ক আমাদের টিকে ছিল সর্বশেষ পর্যন্ত। তার এত অসুখের মধ্যেও যে এই হুইল চেয়ারে করে এসে অকারণে সময় দেওয়া, এটা আমার স্মৃতি হয়ে থাকবে। তার প্রতি আমার শ্রদ্ধা তো থাকবেই, আমার কৃতজ্ঞতাও প্রকাশ করলাম। আজকে এই সুযোগে এই দুটি প্রকাশ করলাম এবং তার আত্মার মাগফিরাত কামনা করছি। ধন্যবাদ।
Mohiuddin played a very important role in motivating me to continue working and publishing in Bangladesh. And what Jeff Wood has said, there was a commitment to, if one did research on Bangladesh, it was so important that this research came back to Bangladeshi readers. I mean, it would be available, it would be published at a reasonable price instead of being published abroad and with publication at such a cost that people could not write. Patrioticism accepted the contribution of people who were not Bangladeshi, but had a deep long-term commitment to Bangladesh. And so, I mean, I spent more than half of my life in Bangladesh. So thank you so much, Mohiuddin, for what you, I mean, in the beginning, I didn't realize the importance of this publisher in a newly independent country, but later on, as years went by, I realized how crucial this UPL has been, and of course, Mohiuddin, who is the soul of this.
Promoter of knowledge, and he did not compromise on one thing, that is the quality. He always stood by quality, and there was no compromise. He was uncompromising.
আমি মহিউদ্দিন ভাইয়ের স্মৃতির প্রতি শ্রদ্ধা জানাই, এবং আমার কাছে মনে হয় যে বাংলাদেশে একজন মানে সত্যিকারের তার যে জ্ঞানের পরিধি সেটা পরিমাপ করতে হলে ওনার কাজের মধ্যেই আমরা সেটা পরিচয় পাই। তিনি অসাধারণ বই প্রকাশনা, অসাধারণ সাফল্য অর্জন করেছেন এবং প্রকাশনা এই বিষয়টাকে একটা নতুন উচ্চ মাত্রায় নিয়ে গেছে।
He read those manuscripts to know what the author is talking about. The quest for knowledge. He wouldn't publish a book that he didn't know, that he didn't understand. That would be beneath his dignity. That I have published a book which I don't know about, I don't understand. So this zeal, this insistence on knowing was part of both as a pride as a publisher, but also the inquisitiveness of a true academic. Now, Mohiuddin Bhai would never claim to be an academic, he never pretended to be an academic, but in my judgment, according to many others too, he was actually a quintessential academic in his heart.
was in 2018 when UPL was celebrating its 40th anniversary. And I was so fortunate, really, that late Hugh Brammer, who published 11 books of his own, really, by this UPL, and all on this difficult subject of soil, environment, agriculture, water resources, the climate, the food, agriculture, and all these things. And he was very kind enough to nominate myself to receive the Lifetime Achievement Award from UPL. I was so honored that I was invited to receive that accolade on Hugh's behalf. So today, my last word is that I'm so grateful to this man, not because I knew him and UPL published our few books, but because he brought a new flavor in the publishing industry with international standard, with a strict review process, without any compromise.
He had the excitement and curiosity and tenacity and wisdom to shape and enable the building of a conscientious and conscious intellectual community. This tireless ability he had to instill the right values through knowledge and books. You know, it always came through in his everyday reactions and interactions. Even though he was an icon among us, he was so approachable and had a way of wonderfully interacting with everyone from the greatest authors to the youngest writers. And to me, he was always so affectionate, encouraging, and made me feel so up on. He gave, you know, one the confidence to believe in oneself. And as you all know, he was also relentless in his pursuit to get stories and works to be written and published that needed to be, and encouraging writers to write.
I met Muhyiddin Bhai as an author in the early 2000s when my co-editor and I signed up to publish an economics book with UPL. And after that, we met him as a neighbor because he was heading the condominium association in our building where we purchased our flat. And in both roles, he was absolutely superb in everything that he did and the attention that he paid to everything. UPL has been the primary publisher for many books that this organization that we are part of, Bangladesh Development Initiative, or BDI, our organization has mostly published books with UPL, and it's because Muhyiddin Bhai welcomed our work so enthusiastically and encouraged our scholarly efforts. Even though much of our work was specialized research and it was not suitable for everyday reading or general public consumption, yet he always had no hesitation in ensuring that we had an outlet for all of this work on development from so many different angles.
বাংলাদেশের প্রকাশনা জগতের পথিকৃৎ মহিউদ্দিন আহমেদ। তাঁর ছিল অপরিমেয় জীবনী শক্তি। অসুস্থতাকে তিনি অসাধারণতার সাথে মোকাবেলা করেছেন। তিনি প্রকাশনাকে বদলে দিয়েছেন। তাকে দিয়েই বাংলাদেশের মানসম্পন্ন প্রকাশনার ইতিহাস রচিত হবে। তার পরিচয় শুধুমাত্র ইউনিভার্সিটি প্রেস লিমিটেডের প্রতিষ্ঠাতা হিসেবে বললে ইতিহাসের প্রতি আমাদের দায়বদ্ধতায় ঘাটতি থেকে যাবে। তিনি বাংলাদেশকে পৃথিবীর গবেষণা অঙ্গনে ছড়িয়ে দিয়েছেন। একদিকে বাংলাদেশ বিষয়ে যেসব কাজ হচ্ছে তার সঙ্গে বিশ্বকে পরিচয় করিয়ে দেয়া, একই সঙ্গে সারা পৃথিবীতে বাংলাদেশ বিষয়ে যেসব গবেষণা হচ্ছে তাকে বাংলাদেশের পাঠকের হাতে তুলে দেয়া, এটাই তিনি করেছেন সারা জীবন। বাংলাদেশকে আন্তর্জাতিক মানসম্পন্ন গবেষণার ক্ষেত্রকে প্রতিষ্ঠিত করার এমন একজন নিবেদিত মানুষ খুবই কম আছে।
So basically, you know, he had all these traits. He was courageous, he was objective. You could debate with him. And if he was convinced, he would accept your view. And he was extremely progressive, ready to change, adapt. So he never aged. He was young. He could interact and mix with people of all ages, a man of all seasons. Where I would sort of classify him was that, he should be, he was what I would call an intellectual entrepreneur. Because with all these characteristics, he had this, special vision where he could discover an opportunity and, he could see where is there a space and where can I contribute and, what can I do for the collective good of millions of people. So he could, identify opportunities. Identifying opportunities is quite meaningless unless you are able to convert those into ideas and action. And you have this ability to organize, material, human resources, and at the end of the day, make the orchestra play. So against such difficult circumstances, swimming against the current, he achieved all this.
Having said that, it is probably a day of celebration, not a day of solace, not a day of mourning as such, because we celebrate what Mohiuddin left. We celebrate the footprint of Mohiuddin's extraordinary, experience and contribution. We celebrate Mohiuddin as a writer, as a publishing emeritus par excellence. Par excellence, I must say that. I say it from the bottom of my heart, Maruk and Shah Maruk and all other participants, that Mohiuddin deserves by all means.
Was not just a publisher. He represented a value system, a societal value, which he expressed through his publishing and through his academic work. And I was very interested to hear what Mr. Arif Khan had to say, going back a bit into the history. Unfortunately, I think it is also important to do some self-introspection, that whether in today's generation we have been uphold the values that people like Mr. Mohiuddin Ahmed had held up for Bangladesh as we move forward. We have achieved a lot, undoubtedly, in our 50 years of journey, but I think the challenges ahead are also great. And it is in meeting these challenges that I think you should miss most the wisdom, knowledge and experience and ideas of someone like Mr. Mohiuddin Ahmed.
So, for me, I was introduced to all his days in Punjab University years later. In fact, in the 80s, when I was in Dhaka, he had come and set up this publishing house. And we met every afternoon, almost every afternoon, because our offices were within walking distance.
Okay.
So I, caught up on the Punjab University days while, we spent time together here in Dhaka. And, I miss him very much, really. Being a childhood friend and
very fine,
a very sincere.
Being a rival candidate, I always rated him very highly as a human being. Very polite, very courteous, very polite, very soft-spoken young man. Those days, I still recall him as a very good rival and a very good opponent. Very sort of pleasurable kind of a campaign we had for a month or two that we were in this contest.
Whenever he came to Pakistan, along with another very, very good friend and colleague, Agha Afzal Hussain, he would come and visit me. Those are the last memories I had of him. And when he was ill, I tried to contact him, but then, I couldn't. I sent you a message also. And God bless you and grant more in the house.
And it was obviously a news because, you know, Punjab University and a candidate from East Pakistan to win the general elections, because, you know, this election was very vast. It had the Oriental College, the Law College, the Commerce College, and then it had the English Literature Department, Fine Arts Department, and then, of course, all the departments of the campus. So they were about
political science, economics,
you know, so 3,000 voters at that time. I'm, you know, 65, 66, which was the largest union, I think, of any educational institution in Pakistan at that time. Assalamu alaikum. How are you? How was yours? I'm on the Zoom call. So that was why it was you know, news. He had great faith in Data Darbar, you know, Data Ganj Baksh of Lahore. So before the election, you know, with all the preparations, this was part of the ritual that he wanted to do. And then I sort of, you know, took him there. And, you know, we visited the Data Darbar and prayed. But the interesting part of the story is that about last 3 years back, when he was not well at all, he called me and he said that I want you to go to the Data Darbar and pray for me. So then at least 3 times, I went to Data Darbar at various intervals and I prayed on his behalf. And with this new technology, I even WhatsApped the whole visit, you know, and made him see the whole darbar and, you know, the prayer and the everything. So he was actually a participant in those 3 meetings that we had. I think the last one must have been about a year back. And so that gave him a lot of solace and that gave him a lot of comfort.
University Press Limited shuru kore jeta korechen, he brought a paradigm shift in our knowledge exercise. A paradigm shift শুধু তা না, paradigm shift মানে জাতির দৃষ্টিভঙ্গি বা সময় থেকে দেখলে মনে হয় paradigm shift, আর he is a founder in the sense that তিনি প্রথম একাডেমিক পাবলিশিং এর এই গুরুত্বপূর্ণ একটা ভূমিকা, এবং সেটা তিনি নিছক ব্যবসার স্বার্থে বা নিছক উদ্যোগ হিসেবে নেননি। তার পাবলিশিং বিজনেসে আসার যে নিজস্ব তার ব্যক্তিগত জীবনের যে বিশাল একাডেমিক যে স্যাক্রিফাইস, স্ট্যানফোর্ড ইউনিভার্সিটির যে পিএইচডি এর অফারকে রিজেক্ট করে তার এখানে যে সেটেলড হওয়ার মানে মুক্তিযুদ্ধের পরে।
Mr. Muhyiddin Ahmed, in my view, he brought Bangladesh in the greater field of promoting the country and country's history and literature. As I see, the Aeropagitica has written how the publishing situation in Great Britain at that time was in great crisis. And Aeropagitica was the outcome of that. And here in Dhaka, Mr. Muhyiddin Ahmed's effort to build and establish this publishing house, coming from Oxford with the experience knowledge of running a first-class publishing house in Karachi, he has infused those qualities into his own house here in Dhaka.